Perfect. Perfect.
Okay, so we got both the springs on, so you can see the lower one there and the upper one there. So that's the adjuster's just set wherever. Pretty much if we're under here and I pull on the handbrake lever, you can see that it activates that side but it doesn't do the other side. So what I think is happening is, go a little white, that little cutout I made on the shoe for this bolt to clear, I don't think it's enough, and I think the shoe is still hitting the bolt underneath the spring there. So ideally I'll trim that a little bit more, see what I can get. But you can see that the thing doesn't really clip in too much. God, I'm terrible at this, but just trust me, I can trim that a bit more and it'll be okay. So I'll do that and see where it's at. But otherwise, the rotates just fine. Everything clears. There's no rubbing or anything. But got to focus on this. But if you have a look around here, oh, the clearance on that is ridiculous. So hopefully that doesn't fall out and get wiped out, but yeah, everything else clears just fine. I'm not sure if the Commodore has a different offset, like a different sized hub, but could be something to look into. Anyway, can't believe it, a 31 diff with VS Commodore brakes on it, or at least drum. So in theory, I should just be able to hook up that handbrake cable and put an appropriate drum on here, and we've got Commodore drum brakes. Just that easy. Far out. This might be the first one that's ever been done, and it's between Christmas and New Year, and I'm lying on the floor at night. This is amazing. Go to focus. There we go. So you can clearly see there's an R31 wagon diff. There's the spring seat. There's the shock pickup, similar to the sedan, and it has the VS brakes on it. So cool. Okay, so what it looks like is this part here is just pointing up too much, so I'll just flatten that off level with the bottom. Still leave a little bit of this cut out so that it locates that bottom adjuster thing or whatever, and it should be right. And then trim some of these scratches up because I scored it up pretty bad. Okay, so there's the final cut, so it's just nice and horizontal, and I didn't do anything else to the top, but you could probably do similar things with it, but it seemed to clear just fine. So there's the top and there's the bottom. That's the shape. Hopefully that will allow it to articulate a little bit when you pull on the handbrake. I suspect that when you pull on the handbrake, the other side will push into the drum, and that will react and push this side into the drum as well, like it runs out of motion that way, so it starts coming this way. But still, it'd be nice to not feel it catch on that. Okay, so you can see the cutout I made for the top one. If we spin around, oops, there's a spring jammed in there. Anyway, if we spin around, you can also see the cutout for the bottom one now. So with that being practically horizontal, it definitely clears that one. And well, anyway, it did clear, and I've just bumped everything. It's all fallen out of place. So I'll put all the springs and stuff back in, and then you'll be able to sort of see what I mean. But the spring will hide it most likely. So yeah, that's where we're at. All right, so we got the shoe back on. Probably something to mention: if you don't like drum brakes, don't do this swap. It is unpleasant at best. So actually, believe it or not, it's easier than the HG. So maybe do it. But that cutout I made in there, you can actually kind of see it from here. Clears by a mile, works really well. And when you pull on the handbrake and the other side gets loaded up, it pushes over this side and moves freely. The top moves freely as well, so that's all good. All the springs are happy. The only thing that I'm really concerned about is the clearance in there. Like, that is paper thin, and when you pull on the handbrake, it actually moves out a little bit, but it still doesn't hit. I don't know how. So who knows, maybe that'll clearance itself down. I'll have to do some driving to see what that does, but it does not hit right now, so I'm calling it a win. So the next thing I need to do is find a disc that will fit this, that also suits the old GTR caliper. So that will sit there and then make up a dog bone and figure out the handbrake cable. So that's the cable that came off the Commodore, and anyone who knows the 31 knows that the cables are vastly different, but we should be able to adapt something, maybe cut it halfway and then put the 31 ends up there. We'll see. I think I've got some spare ones lying around. So this hopefully is the hard part done. So I only have to re-drill and grind out a couple of bits. It's really not that bad. Hopefully we'll be able to do some templates or just some rough guides, and we'll be able to make a kit for this. But you'll have to stay tuned and check out RB Factory for that in the future. Okay, so I just pulled the entire backing plate off whilst everything was installed. The trick was to move the shoes up and down just a little bit so you can get more access. So you can see with this bottom one, there's quite a bit of clearance on that shoe. It's almost level with the spring there, so that works well. But this top side I haven't taken off as much, and you can see it points down quite a bit. Now we can't take it off so it's level with the shoe, with the spring. We can sort of go in the middle of the spring to get rid of that burr there, because that sort of catches on this nut when you move the shoe in and out. So I'm just going to pull this spring off and pull that clip off and then give that a trim and then put it all back together, and I'll be happy with how it is. Then we're going to go and test out the brake rotor over at RB Factory's place. Alright, so just gave this a light trim. Looks like it should clear that bolt and should pretty happily move back and forth without too much trouble. So I could do it. I might just do a little bit more just to be safe. I didn't take this pin out, I just did it in there, and just make sure everything's out of the way when you do it. Try not to trim anything else. Alright, so I went and spoke to Arvin at RB Factory, and he hooked me up with these like adapter plates, I guess you'd say. So based on the position, size of the rotor, caliper size and everything, we're not going to be able to get a bolt-on solution, so, or at least not right now. So the idea is, he's had these for a while but they didn't sell very well. So you cut perfectly at the bottom tangent of both of these original holes, and then you weld this piece on, and you can see that it makes the mounting point slightly wider, and it also positions them correctly for the VNSS brake disc and the R32 GTR caliper. So you can see here, with all this light glare, that the caliper's roughly in the right spot. I've just got it all loosely set in here, but you see the caliper sits pretty happily. The disc spins and everything. I don't have a hub in here yet because I need to re-drill this to make a final fit up, but when you spin this and then pull on the handbrake, it does lock up, and I've got pretty much no adjustment in it. So that is essentially how it'll look. Obviously this is in the wrong spot because this backing plate isn't perfect, but yeah, so now I've got two new ones of those, so I just got to cut it, weld it on both sides, re-drill both holes. I've got some brake discs on the way that are the same as this, so they're vented from DBA. The part number is DBA020, and they're VNSS HSV rear discs. So that should be pretty much everything. I just need to get RB Factory's braided lines to suit the R32 GTR calipers, and the last thing is upgrade the brake master cylinder, because if I run 4 new disc calipers, or 4 new brake calipers, that are, these ones are twin pot and the fronts are 4 pots, so that's 8 at the front and 4 on the rear, which is so many more than the factory R31 because it only had 4 pistons all around. It takes up a lot more fluid capacity, so you need to upgrade the brake master cylinder as well. So that'll be the next thing we tackle, but for now I'm just going to drill this disc and yeah, pretty much install everything with an axle and bolt it all up and make sure it's 100% right and it will work and it's positioned correctly, and then go ahead with it.